Good morning. You're listening to Retake Our Democracy, a 30-minute weekly show that airs at 8:30 a.m. each Saturday morning on KSFR 101.1 FM, your Santa Fe public radio station. And I'm Paul Gibson, the host of Retake Our Democracy. Today I'm speaking with Anneke VanRossum, a staffer for the Green Amendment for the Generations and daughter of Maya VanRossum, who is the founder of a Green Amendment for the Generations. Last week, I spoke with Marielle Nanasi, Director of New Energy Economy, on the heels of her having just won the biggest regulatory case of her career, a 5-0 vote by the PRC to reject the PNM Avangrid's Iberdrola merger. And if that isn't enough, then we're recording this on Thursday morning. On Wednesday, the PRC again supported Marielle and New Energy Economy and a number of other enviro organizations in denying PNM's request for abandonment of Four Corners plant, which would have allowed it to continue spewing methane for at least another 10 years. And there's more to that as well, and it will be into the Thursday post that Retake sends out. So you can check it there on our website at retakeourdemocracy.org. But let's just take it from this, that justice prevailed in both of those hearings. And it's a decided contrast to the circus that's going on in the New Mexico State Legislature and trying to redistrict our boundaries for the coming 10 years. It's just an absolute embarrassment. And there too, in Thursday's blog is a really good analysis of what's going on. And it's hard to believe that they are actually manipulating boundaries in order to move a candidate who was going to oppose a Republican senator so that he no longer lives in that district. Democrats are doing that. If you're driving around and miss any of this show, you can watch the full YouTube recording of this and any other previous show from Retake Our Democracy by going to retakeourdemocracy.org and clicking on the Actions and Events menu. Scroll down to the link for Retake Conversations, where all our shows reside. I want to take just a moment to acknowledge that we are conducting this show on stolen Tewa land and to thank our Tewa neighbors for being such good stewards of the land. I also want to remind you that the 2022 legislative session is a month away, and Retake will be operating our legislative alert system again this year, as we have for each of the last 5 years. The alert system basically works this way. You click on the homepage for retakeourdemocracy.org and click on Get Alerts. And what you get then is that throughout the Roundhouse session, you'll get emails whenever one of our bills that we're supporting or opposing is coming for a hearing, either on the floor of the Senate or the House or in a committee. And with that, you'll get speaking points, a summary of the bill, a description of why it's good for the state of New Mexico, and contact information for your legislator. So it makes it easier for you to contact them and raise your voice. So sign up for that today. We're going to be getting started in about 3-4 weeks now. So hang on. That's about it. Let's get to talking to Anneke and find out a little bit more about what's going on with the Green Amendment. Anneke, can you I always like to let my guests introduce themselves. So how about you tell us how you wound up working on the Green Amendment?
Yeah, so my name is Anneke VanRossum, and I am as you said, the daughter of Maya VanRossum. So I think that's the easiest way to say I got involved in it, as I was very fortunate to grow up with a mother that nature was an integral part of who she was and her job, and she kind of raised me that way. And I was the kid who, on the way to the grocery store, I hugged each and every tree on the way because I thought they needed some love. So as I've grown as a person, and I went to undergrad for politics, and I'm now in law school too, and my fire for environmental activism has just expanded. And I really think the Green Amendment concept, when my mom first started telling me about it, and as I've gone through law school and learned and more, I think it's really something that we've never seen in the environmental sphere and environmental laws. And I really do believe that this is the tool in the toolbox that we've never had. And I think it's going to change everything. So I couldn't not, when the opportunity came to be in New Mexico for the fall and work on it, I just jumped at it and was so excited. And it's been amazing being here.
That's great. That's great. No, your mom's wonderful, and I'm Retake will be supporting this bill strongly. Um, so for some of our listeners who maybe don't know what the Green Amendment is, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so the Green Amendment is putting your environmental rights on par with your other fundamental rights. So, like your right to free speech, your right to private property, freedom to peaceably assemble, all that. We're basically putting your right to breathe clean air, to have clean water, to have a healthy environment, to have a stable climate, and also ensuring that it's not just here for people on this planet right now, but for future generations who are going to come into this world, and putting it in the Bill of Rights section. So not just any other part of the Constitution, but your Bill of Rights are really the highest level of constitutional protection. And it puts a duty on government to protect people and to protect the environment, to protect the environment for the people. So it's not like I've said, it's not like anything we've ever seen before. And so for people who don't know, like, just like how you get to say, like, this is infringing on my free speech. And if you have a constitutional claim, it's the same for you're infringing on my right to breathe clean air.
Okay. And but you say you've never seen it before, but it is now in place in a couple of states, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean in terms of other environmental laws, but yes. So the
Right.
Green Amendment is only in 3 states. It's in Pennsylvania, Montana, and then just this past November, with a 68% majority vote of the people, it is now in New York.
All right. That's great work. Great work. You just mentioned that people would have action to take against the government if their air is not clean, or if the government's not doing enough to protect their air. But this isn't something where they'd come in and sue for $10 million. They would sue for the government to take action, correct?
Yeah, so it would be either to take action in terms of, hey, this an example is what happened with a case in Montana, is that there was a permit approved for an open pit gold mine, and it would have actually allowed arsenic to flow into several of the rivers from the underground water pumping. So several environmental groups argued that the environmental agency failed in the obligation to protect the environment. And so what the court said was that, the state didn't look into the degradation of the high quality waters. So the license wasn't upheld. So
Okay.
yeah, not a suing for money, but a suing for taking action or actually limiting government action.
For actually doing their job, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because that's one of the big objections that we heard in the last legislative session, is that the smaller communities would go broke fighting fighting lawsuits and paying penalties and so forth. In New Mexico, the bill was named the Environmental Rights Act. It hit a brick wall last year in the Senate Judiciary. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so last year, basically the Green Amendment never got scheduled for a hearing. It was part of a logjam in Senate Judiciary where a lot of bills just didn't get heard. They didn't get assigned a hearing. So unfortunately, we didn't get assigned a hearing. So we just kind of died on the floor.
Yeah. Hopefully with some pressure from advocacy groups, you'll do a little bit better this year. And you've been working pretty hard during the last year to try and line up more support. Can you tell us what the steering committee or the strategy committee has been doing over the last year, and what the results of that work has been?
Yeah, so we've had several individuals, organizations come join every week for a strategy meeting that we do. And basically we're trying to we've been trying to prep for the 30-day session. So how do we make people aware of this? How do we get legislators on board, preparing for any messaging that we can, of course, tackle and say, that's not correct, and really just get the Green Amendment message out there in hopes that in the 30-day session, we will get it through and really prove that this is not just something that the people need, but this is what the people of New Mexico want. So that's been a lot of our conversation, and really trying to up the support that we already had. And I really think it's been growing, and it's just been thrilling to watch.
Okay. And what were some of the objections or concerns that were expressed by the legislators in the last session?
So, part of the problem in the last session was because we didn't get a hearing, we didn't get to hear all of the concerns, because it wasn't so much that they killed the bill, it just died. But definitely some of the things that we heard
Still killing it.
Yeah. Some of the things that we did hear before, was that it's going to bring frivolous litigation. Like I did remember one legislator saying, well, are people going to, sue the clouds, which is just not a thing. There's really only been like a couple cases brought every year of a Green Amendment, and any that were dismissed were never dismissed as frivolous. And so 17, there have been at least 17 key cases of the Green Amendment, and none have been dismissed as frivolous or heard as frivolous. There's a whole body of law and restriction on lawyers too, that you get in big trouble if you bring frivolous lawsuits. So that's just not, it's just something they throw out there, but it holds no water.
Holds no water, but it protects the water. So that's a good
Yes.
combination. I need to take a brief break here to remind our listeners that KSFR is more important than ever, offering timely news and alerts and a wide range of programming that keep you sane in this age of misinformation. They actually produce facts and good research and programs like We Take Our Democracy and Democracy Now! And others that focus on local culture, arts, food, and politics. And so it's a great resource for our community. And if you've got some spare change, I'd encourage you to go to ksfr.org right after you listen to this show and click on the donate button and toss them some 10 or 20 bucks and view it as your ticket for admission to great programming. That's all for the plug. Since the end of the 2021 session, what has the steering committee been actually doing, or the strategy? You've been meeting every month, but have you been bringing in legislators to have conversations with them about what's going on, or have you been leaving that to committee members to do?
So we've, through our work as Green Amendments for the Generations, the influence of the different nonprofits we work with, and our already legislative champions that we had before, I'm proud to say we have gone from 4 to now 23 legislators who have signed on as intending to co-sponsor when the bill comes in the 30-day session. So that's been a lot. Yeah, so it's really great. And that's been a lot of just multiple people who really care about this and doing it in a myriad of ways. And so that's been one of the ways we've been doing the legislator, and also our co-sponsors, talking and figuring out what concerns are and things like that. And so, and also just us planning what we assume people will be talking about.
Okay, that's great. I was part of the strategy meetings last year and in the beginning of the process this year, but the stroke took me out. And but we'll be jumping back in and providing support and maybe try and wrangle some more legislators for us.
Definitely.
So and so you've made some great progress. Have you found anybody who's digging in their heels?
Yeah, I would say there definitely are some people, one of the rhetorics, of course, is like, what is this going to do to oil and gas? And we've always said, it's not going to rip up oil and gas. This Green Amendment is not an instant panacea. It doesn't rip the rigs out of the ground. It just informs better government decision making. And I think something that I was actually pretty surprised to hear was someone say that the people don't actually know what this is, that they don't know what it is. They don't understand what they're voting for. And I was pretty shocked by that, because in actuality, I don't think the concept, when you want to get in the weeds of it, sure, but the concept itself is not that hard for people to understand. And when you simply just say to somebody, your right to breathe clean air is as powerful as your right to free speech, that hits home with so many people. And so I'm really looking forward to the 30-day session and having people and having our grassroots make clear that they do know what this is and they want it and they need it. So that's what I've been pretty surprised to hear. And of course, again, the frivolous litigation comes up again, but we've disproven that time and time again.
So that's great. Well, will Maya be jumping back in as we get closer to the legislature, or are you the lead this year?
So I actually have to finish my last semester of law school, but she and other members from our Green Amendment staff, I
said details.
Yeah, she and other members of our Green Amendment staff will actually be here for the 30-day session to help be a catalyst for that. So that's really great.
And if people want more information about the Green Amendment and your work here in New Mexico, where can they get it?
So go to nmgreenamendment.org. That is where you can find all the resources for the language of the Green Amendment. We have our current co-sponsor list on there if you want to see if your legislator is signed up. And we have different petitions. And I'm also really excited if you follow us on social media. So Instagram is @Green Amendments, and several of our grassroots, we're going to have a social media toolkit. And we're really going to be pushing that, hoping that everybody can do a myriad of ways to make your voice heard and tell your legislator, again, that you do know what this is and you want it. So there's so many ways for people to get involved, and I definitely would keep up with us if you want to make your voice heard in this 30-day session and before.
Can you tell us about the event on Saturday night? This is airing on Saturday morning.
Oh, yes. So on Saturday, we are going to be at the Jean Cocteau Cinema. We are going to do masks and all that, so making sure everybody's safe.
It's in Santa Fe.
In Santa Fe, yes. So it's from 5 to 7:30. So it's just basically an event where if you haven't heard of the Green Amendment yet, if you want to learn more, come. We're going to have a short film. We're going to have several of our co-sponsors being able to talk about the Green Amendment, answering questions, talking about hot topics in New Mexico's environment right now. And Maya VanRossum, the founder of the Green Amendment movement, will also be there. So it's just going to be a great chance for people who haven't heard about it or want to get more involved to come and learn more, and also get engaged and hear how they can participate.
I just can't emphasize enough. This has been such a great, this is a model for how grassroots organizing should occur. We had an organization come in from, is it Pennsylvania? Philadelphia, you guys?
The Green Amendment? Yeah, so our office is in Pennsylvania, but we're national, and with COVID, we're basically remote now, so we do a lot.
Yeah, but people in New Mexico bridle at listening to other people from outside the state as if we know everything. And so it's important to note that while the Green Amendment for the generations comes from another state, they have really developed a grassroots in very much New Mexican green chili, if you will, green and red chili spiced movement, with most of the arm twisting with legislators being done by constituents. We get coordination and suggestions from Maya and Anneke, but this is definitely a grassroots group of 20 or so people who have been deeply involved in the environmental movement in New Mexico. And if you want to get more involved in it, I would suggest you do as Anneke suggested and go to NewMexicoGreenAmendment.org and find out more information, and also attend the event on Saturday. Are you going to be requiring vaccination proof?
I don't think that is happening, but we are having people wear masks and things like that, and we're going to do spacing and all that. So I think that's what's been planned.
Okay, I hope you get a good turnout. I think people are getting nervous about this Omicron. But
yeah, which also, if you can't come, it's great to just go to the website and check it out. This was a event we were excited to do, and we definitely are doing everything we can to be as safe as possible for people, because we know just how important that is.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much for being with us today, Anneke. I'm going to have to ad lib for a few minutes because you're so good at offering precise answers. Do you have anything else you would like to share with our audience, since we've got a few minutes?
I mean, I definitely just would like to say too, how you're saying, being involved. We have over 45 grassroots organizations signed on. And one of the big things we do is we don't just bulldoze into a state. We go in when people ask us to be there, when they say this is something they want, whether it's individual people. I think the New Mexico Green Amendment movement got started because Maya got one phone call from somebody who saw a film or read the book.
Was it Mike?
Yeah, Mike Neese. Yeah. So she got one phone call, and that's how it started. And it's just, snowballed into this great thing. So we never bulldoze our way in. We really want to be part of the community. We want to join in other people's voices. And we just see ourselves really as we are the resource to help people get the Green Amendment off the ground and get it in the Constitution. And I really, really hope New Mexico is number 4 to get it. It will make me very proud having been here. And so I just really encourage everybody to stay up to date with us, because part of the way we're going to get this done in the 30-day session is a lot of people saying to their legislators, I want this, I need this. And frankly, we don't have too much more time to waste. We are in code red for humanity. Right. And New Mexico needs it now.
Beyond code red. Maybe I thought of another thing that maybe you could fill us in on that would be instructive. And that's, you mentioned that only 1 or 2 cases a year really tends to come up in other states. Do you have on your fingertips some examples of where you gave one in Montana? Are there other examples of how the Green Amendment has been used to protect our right to a clean environment?
Yeah, so one case and another case in Pennsylvania. So there's multiple, I'm just listing some examples, but One was the Department of Environmental Protection in Pennsylvania actually failed for over a decade to remediate, or nearly 2 decades to remediate a site in Pennsylvania that had been a former paper mill. And because it didn't get cleaned up, this toxic chemical called TCE, which is very cancerous, actually leached into the ground and created an almost, after time, almost a mile long plume. It had gone out to affect this nearby community, and people were getting sick. A young community member actually had several bouts of brain cancer that had never been seen in her family before. And so the Delaware Riverkeeper Network had brought a case that basically DEP failed to comply with the Green Amendment in Pennsylvania because they didn't clean it up and they weren't taking active action to do anything about it. And so even though the DEP tried to argue, well, we're trying to find third parties to clean up the site, and we've been doing a little bit of something, the court basically said you haven't been doing, but you haven't been following your obligation. And that's not enough to just say you've done a little bit, but not really to the full extent of what you need to do. So that was sufficient for the court to overrule theirs. Also, another Montana case that I think is so powerful is there was another gold mining operation that actually would have threatened to pollute the Yellowstone River. And so environmental groups basically said that this was another approval of a license. And they said that the state failed to undertake a fully robust consideration of the environmental implications of the project before issuing the license. And the court agreed. And they said, so they vacated the license because they just hadn't done the work to see exactly how much it was going to harm the environment.
Those are good examples. And they don't sound frivolous at all, do they?
No, I mean, every case I've read, it hasn't been frivolous. I mean, it's people really caring about, and it's not people looking for money. It's not people looking for a payout. It's people saying, I want to breathe. I want to enjoy my water. I want this nature to be around for my kids and my grandkids. I mean, that's what people want. So any assertion too that someone's looking for a payout is just incorrect. People want their environment to be clean and healthy. And I think, living in New Mexico for this long and seeing how beautiful it is, that's all I can imagine is people just wanting to protect this unique, truly land of enchantment environment. And I'm so excited. And I hope that, that comes to fruition.
Who would be a receptive audience is the folks in Flint, Michigan, to protect their water. Talking about needing protection.
I actually, in college, I did a little Green Amendment poster, and I had all my classmates write why they wanted a Green Amendment. And one of my classmates actually wrote Flint, Michigan was the reason that they put on the poster.
Yeah, that's just totally embarrassing.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much, Anneke, and good luck with this. And you can hang if you want, or you can drop off. I'm going to talk about the New Mexico State Legislature and the redistricting process for a couple of minutes because we've got some time to kill.
Great. Well, I'll listen in for a little bit and then I have to hop off, but I super appreciate you talking to me, and your support for the Green Amendment means so much to us. Yeah, well, you may not want to listen because this is going to be sort of dispiriting information. Okay. But as our listeners know, there's been a redistricting process going on for the last year or so. And last year in the legislature, we were able to pass a bill that created a CRC, a redistricting commission that was supposed to do an independent job, and they did. They spent a year going around to communities and taking input publicly, and created a set of principles and a range of maps for the state Senate, for the state House, for the Department of Education, and for our U.S. congressional districts. And it's absolutely embarrassing, the process that they've gone through. It's supposed to be reasonably public, but all the decisions are being made in private, behind closed doors. And then the legislators come out and say, here's our map, and this is why we did it. And this is why we did it this way is often very disingenuous. But there's no public discussion of those trade-offs and how they arrive at the maps. This is a great contrast to the way the Public Regulation Commission has just conducted two very, very challenging decisions. One was a merger, and both with high stakes,
very high stakes. One was the merger for PNM and Avangrid and Iberdrola, which the PRC denied. And just Wednesday, they also denied PNM's request to abandon a coal plant in Four Corners and sell it to the native community, or not the community, but to this corporation, NTEC, and let it continue to operate for another 10 years. And it's one of the dirtiest plants in the United States. It's the source of the methane plume above northwest New Mexico. And so the PRC process was entirely public. When all the evidence was aired in public, and then the discussion among the PRC commissioners about what they took from that evidence was also all done publicly. And then the vote was public. Whereas in the legislature on this redistricting, maps are submitted and then the committees adjourn, and then caucuses go and meet in private, party caucuses, and then across the aisle, they'll pull together folks, because it's perfectly clear that some of this stuff involves a consensus achieved by Republicans and Democrats, but it's a consensus organized around protecting incumbents. And so they have rejected the tribal consensus that was achieved through 8 months of negotiations among, I think it's 27 governmental bodies of indigenous people and their governing bodies. And they came together with a map that would have consolidated the native voice very well in a district, and instead of splintering it off. And that's one of those communities of interest that should have been responded to, those exigencies. But instead, they have met in private, and what they have done is try and redraw boundaries so that incumbents don't face challenges. And that can be either Democrat or Republican incumbents. In one of the more embarrassing examples that I outline in Thursday's blog, the Republicans have basically convinced the Democrats, who are in charge of this, basically they're the majority, that one district needed to be redrawn. It's Greg Baca, the Republican leader, Senate leader, and as the CRC map had laid out, he would have been facing a challenge from another incumbent Republican, Senator Joshua Sanchez. And so that map was redrawn so that they would not face each other. But that wasn't enough. Then they also redrew the boundary to snag, include to draw the line so that it marked out Paul Baca. Paul Baca challenged Gregory Baca he's a Democrat, Paul Baca. He challenged Greg Baca in the 2016 election and only lost by 2%. And so the new boundaries are drawn in such a way that Paul Baca no longer lives in that district. He lives right at the boundary. So the boundary was redrawn just to make sure he doesn't live in that district. He's 1 block out of that district. And so that protects Greg Baca from a serious challenge. And that's something that Democrats signed on to. And that's something that was developed behind closed doors, because who on earth would want to sit in front of the public and explain why this is a good idea? But that's what's been going on. And so it's important that you pay attention to this stuff. Check out retakeourdemocracy.org and click on Thursday's blog, and it should be right at the top. And check out a deeper analysis. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us at Retake Our Democracy. Please stay healthy, stay safe, and stay active. It's the only way we fix this mess, and it is indeed a mess. We'll be back next week with another show. Bye-bye.